The day David came back from his business trip, I had just had a DC at the hospital. He sent me a message. "You've had 2 weeks to cool down. Do you know where you went wrong?" The same old condescending tone. I looked at the 4 needle still in my hand and replied coldly, "I know." He seemed pleased and sent a cute emoji he rarely used. "Why is no one home? Where are you, Isabel?" I sent him 2 photos. One was the ultrasound report from a month ago. The other was today's surgery bill. A month before his trip, I had gone to his office on a whim, but I found him and his junior, Anna, with their heads close together. His arms were wrapped around her, trapping her between him and the desk. They were looking at a document on the computer screen. He was talking with enthusiasm, and she was listening intently. I leaned against the doorframe of his office, watching his jaw move up and down, lightly brushing against the top of her head. I watched his well-defined hand cover hers, guiding the mouse, until a passing secretary gasped, "Isabel." The two of them finally reacted. She looked up in a panic and bumped his chin. In the ensuing pain, they were even closer. I gave the secretary a sharp look, and she quickly scurried away. When I looked back, the two of them had separated. Compared to her flushed, guilty face, he was calm and composed. "What brings you here?" He walked toward me and took my bag. He turned and saw her still standing awkwardly by his desk. He frowned and said in a low voice, "You can go back to your desk. Have the legal department check the default clauses in the contract again." The young girl bit her lip and nodded numbly. As she passed me, she suddenly stopped. As if summoning all her courage, she stammered, "Isabel, please don't misunderstand." I raised an eyebrow. "Interested, my senior and I. It's not what you think. We were just going over the contract." With that, she looked up at me, then quickly glanced at him. I laughed inwardly. I had to admit, a girl in her early 20s, even when she was being disingenuous, had a certain charm. Unfortunately for her, she had run into the 30-year-old, impenetrable Isabel. I didn't respond. Instead, I tilted my chin at him. "The next time I come to the company, I don't want to see her." The girl's face instantly turned pale. She looked at him for help. "Senior," he squinted, looking at me with confusion. He then explained, "Isabel, it's not what you think." I curved my lips. If it's not what I think, then her work is not up to par. What kind of business contract requires you to personally guide her? He was taken aback and opened his mouth again. I dropped my smile. My gaze was calm as I looked at him. "Are you sure you want to argue with me here over whether an assistant stays or goes?" After a few seconds of a standoff, he shrugged. "Fine, you win." Her eyes filled with tears, and she ran out, her face full of hurt. He sighed lightly and closed the door. He hugged me from behind, his head nuzzling my neck. "Isabel, you're jealous," he murmured, his voice low and husky, with a hint of pleasure. "I was wrong just now. I got too absorbed in my work and wasn't careful. You know, Anna is my junior. My professor asked me to take care of her." The hot breath on my neck made my skin crawl. The image of them pressed so close together flashed in my mind. I felt sick. I broke free from his embrace and turned to face him. I straightened his slightly wrinkled collar and said casually, "I don't mind you taking care of a classmate. There are many graduates from our university in the company. If you have to personally train every one of them, we won't have time to do any business. The company is not a school. If one person doesn't follow the rules, it's unfair to everyone else." I held back from saying anything harsher. His eyes darkened. He wrapped his arms around my waist again. "My love, you're right. I wasn't being thoughtful. Anna's personality is not suitable for the company. Don't worry, I will handle this properly. I guarantee you won't see her the next time you come." At his words, my heart, which had been in my throat, settled a little. We had known each other for 10 years and had been married for 4. From a campus romance to a model entrepreneurial couple, we had been through so much together to get to where we were today. In our private life, we had the same values, our personalities were compatible, and our emotional foundation was stable. We were soulmates who knew each other best. In our public life, we were also business partners who trusted each other implicitly. He was in charge of technology, and I was in charge of management. Personnel matters had always been my domain. This year, to prepare for pregnancy, I had temporarily stepped back from the company's operations, and my protégée, Claire, had taken over. The last time we had spoken, after her work report, she had hesitated and then casually mentioned that a new intern was causing some trouble. I knew her well. She never said anything without a reason. Besides, it was just an assistant. She could have made the decision to let her go herself. Unless she couldn't, I was a little surprised. Her authority in the company was second only to mine. If not me, then it had to be him. I suppressed the unease in my heart and asked casually, "What's the intern's name?" "Anna." The name was not unfamiliar. At the beginning of the year, at our university's 70th anniversary celebration, he had been invited back as a distinguished alumnus to share his experiences. I had gone with him. The speech was a great success, and the atmosphere was electric. After 10 years, the naive, bookish young man had grown into a suave and dashing figure. Every move he made was filled with a calm confidence. I was genuinely proud and admiring. These were our best 10 years. During the QA session, the students mostly asked about our startup story and career advice. She was the last to ask a question. She was very pretty, with a gentle and weak appearance that made people like her at first sight. Under the gaze of the entire hall, she looked up at him, her expression timid, but her question was bold and direct. "Excuse me, senior, do you have a girlfriend?" The hall erupted in laughter. No matter the occasion, such personal questions always piqued people's curiosity. I laughed along with them, not thinking much of it. He was unfazed and replied politely, "Thank you for your concern, but I am already married." Across the crowd, our eyes met. I gave him a teasing smile, and he looked at me with a helpless expression. I thought the little episode was over, but after hearing his answer, the girl did not sit down. She took the microphone again. "Then, senior, would you mind having another girlfriend?" The hall fell silent. He also frowned. I looked at the girl, a little confused. A student from a top university, no matter how lively, should not be so rude. In the awkward silence, she laughed lightly and saved herself. "Senior, I was just joking. I'm Anna from the computer science department. I hope to have the opportunity to work at your company after I graduate." He, of course, did not give her a promise, but in front of everyone, he did not embarrass her. "You are welcome to submit your resume after you graduate." After the celebration, we walked hand in hand through the campus. At every turn, he would recount our memories of our time there. He had a very good memory. I had forgotten many of the details, but he would sigh and say, "Isabel, thank you for choosing me when I had nothing, for fighting alongside me for 10 years. Compared to the company, you are the most precious treasure of my life. For every decade to come, we will be together." He was not a man who was good with words, so I listened to every one of his heartfelt words with great care. As we were about to leave, someone ran up to us, out of breath. "Senior, wait." It was the girl who had asked the question. She ran up to us and stopped. A thin layer of sweat beaded on her fair forehead. The natural blush on her cheeks made her look so fresh and delicate. A wave of displeasure washed over me. There's a time and a place for everything. This was applicable to any adult over the age of 18. His face also darkened. He said nothing, just looked at her coldly. Sensing our unwelcome attitude, she looked nervous. She wrung her hands. She glanced at me. "Hello, sister, are you his wife?" I came to apologize to him. I was too forward at the talk. I hope he wasn't offended. Before I could speak, he said impatiently, "I accept your apology. Is there anything else? My wife and I are going home. Please excuse us." With that, he took my hand and turned to leave. I had to admit, I was pleased with how he had handled it. No woman can tolerate another woman coveting her husband. The gloom that had gathered in my heart was swept away, but an unwelcome voice came from behind. "I'm so envious of you, sister, to have found such an outstanding husband." I stopped. A fire ignited in my heart. I turned, and my cold gaze fell on her unwilling face. "Anna, right. Youth is no excuse for ignorance and recklessness. If your goal after graduation is to find a good husband, you have truly wasted your 4 years of education. Focus your mind where it should be. Be a person of good character. Be diligent and studious, and you will naturally have a good future." She stood there, stunned. I ignored her and turned to take his hand. He was smiling, looking at me with a playful expression. "Let's go, my love." Later, I put the trivial matter out of my mind. I never thought that in just 6 months, that name would reappear in my life. Claire told me that the day after I went to the company, she had resigned. My doubts were dispelled. I threw myself into preparing for pregnancy. We were both in our 30s. For the past few years, we had both been too busy. Either we were pulling all-nighters at the office or at a client's dinner table. Our parents had urged us many times, but he had always shielded me. Later, when his mother became too persistent, he had said he had a health problem, which had given us a little breathing room. At a recent gathering, all of our close friends had children. A bunch of cute little babies. His eyes had lit up, and he had held them one after another, unable to get enough. That night, in the heat of the moment, his deep eyes had shone with a strange light. "My love, let's have a baby too. A girl would be best. As smart and cute as you." I didn't refuse. A career is important, but to have a child with the person you love is also a great happiness. We said we were preparing, but really, we were just relaxing. That night, I had dinner plans with a few friends. I messaged him to ask if he wanted to join. He replied with regret that he had a business dinner, so I didn't ask any more. With me not at the company, the burden on his shoulders was even heavier. As I was leaving, I suddenly remembered that the wine we had stored at the private club on the half mountain was probably gone. He never paid attention to such small things, and probably hadn't noticed, worried that he wouldn't have anything to serve at his dinner. I had the driver put 2 cases of good wine in the trunk and took me to the club first. When I arrived, the club was bustling. The lobby was being decorated with flowers and balloons. We had rented this club for 5 years, specifically for the company's business receptions. I sat in the car, trying to remember if any of our clients had an important event coming up. I hadn't planned to get out, but I was curious. I walked into the flower-filled lobby. The people outside saw me and stopped what they were doing, their eyes darting inside, their faces full of a hidden panic. My brow twitched. The strange feeling grew stronger. Just as I was about to go in, I heard a familiar, sweet female voice. "Senior, thank you. You are so good to me. This will be the most unforgettable and meaningful birthday of my life." My hand on the doorknob froze. A chilling coldness spread through my body. Looking at the door, I suddenly didn't have the courage to open it, until a clear, steady male voice came from inside. "As long as you are happy." Those simple words were like a thunderclap, shattering my last illusion. How could he be with her? And how could she be here? The people outside opened their mouths to warn him, but I shot them a fierce glare. No one dared to speak. The conversation inside continued. "Senior, you're spending my birthday with me tonight. Will Isabel be upset?" The man chuckled. "It's just a birthday. It's not a big deal." The girl let out a small, excited shriek. Then she sighed. "Senior, it's better for me to work here. There are not so many office politics, and I can avoid any misunderstandings with Isabel. And I can see you often." The last sentence, she said softly, full of a hopeful expectation. Her little intentions were obvious. I waited at the door for a while, but I didn't hear his reply. A moment later, I heard footsteps approaching. "I have to go back to the company for a bit. I'll be back later. The gift on the table is for you, a reward for your hard work. In a little while." The door was suddenly pulled open. I looked up and met his astonished face. He stood there, frozen. The smile had not yet completely faded from his face, and his mouth was open, the unspoken words swallowed. "Senior, what were you going to say?" She ran over and peeked out from behind him. In an instant, her face became as ugly as his. "Isabel." His Adam's apple bobbed. He spoke tentatively. My hands were at my sides. The pain of my nails digging into my palms brought me back to my senses. Looking at the two of them, what did I not understand? A classic case of misdirection. I never would have thought that my most trusted husband, my life partner, the man who had said I was his most precious treasure, also had 2 faces. And it wasn't as if there were no signs. I, who was always so sharp, how could I have been so foolish as to believe his lies? Time is a terrible thing, so terrible that we take it for granted that with enough time, we can completely understand and trust a person. Perhaps my expression was too cold. He frowned and reached for my hand. I slapped it away. I pushed past him to go inside. He didn't move. A wall between me and her. The girl who had just peeked out had now retreated, cowering behind him. I looked up, a mocking smile on my face, but my eyes were as if filled with sand, wet and cloudy, so close. How could I not see the person in front of me clearly? "Isabel, let's go back first. I will give you a reasonable explanation." His arm was around my waist, trying to lead me out. The suppressed anger in my heart erupted. With a trembling hand, I slapped him across the face. The loud sound made everyone in the club turn and look. His head snapped to the side. He pressed his lips together and did not get angry. Instead, he turned back, and with his thumb, gently wiped the corner of my eye. His eyes were as gentle as they had always been. "My love, let's go back first." "Okay." He tried to soothe me. I looked up at him, motionless. What was he worried about in this moment? Was he afraid I would make a scene and ruin the company's reputation? Or was he afraid I would hurt the girl behind him? I, who had always been so sure, suddenly had no confidence. In that subtle moment, she slipped out from the side. Her small body stood in front of him, a look of injustice on her face. "Isabel, how could you hit him? You didn't like me at the company, so I resigned as you wished. There is nothing between us. How can you just hit him without asking any questions? And he is the boss of the company. You are so bossy and domineering." You don't even give him any face in public. You, shut up. He pulled her away. It is not your place to speak to her like that. Apologize. My ears were ringing. Her voice, his voice. I even wondered if they were not trying to clear things up but were a couple having a fight, and I was the third party who had just barged in. How ridiculous. In that moment, all my beliefs about marriage, about love, collapsed. I broke free from his grasp. I walked, numbly, into the club I had personally decorated. I hadn't been here in a few months, and it was completely different. The few rare masterpieces I had painstakingly acquired from an Italian painter were now in a corner. In their place were a few cheap, trendy decorations. In the cabinet of high-end bone china, there were a few brightly colored cartoon plates. Even the cool-toned cushions on the sofa had been replaced with warm-toned dolls. I didn't go any further. I stood at the entrance and looked around. A few cold laughs escaped my throat. So, she had been treating this place as her own home. What kind of trash did she dare to bring in? And he had allowed it all. He knew how much effort I had put into decorating this club, and every item here had been chosen by us, together, based on the preferences of our clients. My gaze shifted to a small table. On it was a set of La Prairie skincare. Remembering the gift he had just mentioned, my eyes felt as if they had been burned. He knew about La Prairie. In the early days of our business, we had gone to choose a gift for a female client. He had been shocked by the nearly 30,000 yuan bill. He had leaned in and whispered in my ear, "My love, when we make money, you'll use this product too." Later, when we had made money, I hadn't waited for him to buy it for me. He was too busy and had long since forgotten this little thing, so I had bought it for myself. I never thought that his grand promise would be fulfilled for another woman. The noise outside finally quieted down. He came in and took my wrist. "My love, let's go home." I was too soft-hearted. My professor asked me several times, and I couldn't refuse. I was also worried you would be upset, so I compromised and arranged for her to work here. I looked at him calmly. "So, this birthday party was also arranged by your professor. The tens of thousands of yuan in skincare was also from your professor. And tonight, lying to me about a business dinner, was that also your professor's idea? Is that right, David? Do I, Isabel, look like a fool, or is she your professor's mistress?" A string of sharp questions left him speechless. His lips moved, but no words came out. A wave of disappointment washed over me. For a moment, I had even fantasized that he would tell me, "Yes, it's all a misunderstanding," but he said nothing. He had silently admitted that all of his unreasonable actions were his own. I closed my eyes in despair. "Isabel, how can you say that? My senior threw me a birthday party and gave me a gift because I've been working so hard. If you mind, I'll just give it back to you. Everyone at the company says you are so kind to your employees." "I guess that's not true." She was full of indignation. She ran over and held out the gift box to me. Her small, defiant face was red. "Here, take it back. Stop making things difficult for me and my senior." Sometimes, I really wondered if I was getting old. Why could I not understand the actions of a girl in her early 20s? She had a pretty face and a good education, yet she was so obsessed with a married man a dozen years her senior. She was so fawning over him, and so malicious toward me. Perhaps the joy of picking a fruit is far greater than nurturing a new seedling, and the sense of accomplishment from snatching a fruit from someone else is even greater. Unfortunately for her, I was never a pushover, and I was not a woman who would silently sacrifice for him. I reached out and opened the gift box in her hand. A flicker of surprise and confusion crossed her eyes. Soon, it was just shock. The beautiful, shimmering blue bottles and jars in the box were all poured onto the floor. The viscous liquid mixed with the broken glass. A complete mess. I wiped my hands in disgust and threw the tissue at her. "You like to pick up trash so much. Here, you can have it." Calling him senior again and again. Is it a title of respect or a term of endearment? Did your parents not teach you how to behave in society? When did our marital affairs become your business? I took a step forward and grabbed her chin, forcing her to look at me. "Anna, I gave you a chance. You chose to be a chicken instead of a person. Then I can only treat you like a chicken." Perhaps my words were too harsh. Tears of humiliation welled up in her eyes. "That's enough, Isabel. She's just a young girl," he said, stepping between us. His eyes were dark and unreadable. "Isabel, your words are too harsh. It's not what you think between us. She's just graduated. She's naive and a bit lively, but she has no bad intentions. I know that what happened before has given you a bad impression of her, but you can't just judge us based on your own assumptions." "Assumptions?" I scoffed. I walked to the bar and, from among the uniform glasses, picked out an out-of-place one. I threw it on the marble floor. Amid the crisp sound of shattering glass, his brow furrowed even deeper. His deep gaze followed my every move. He didn't understand what I was doing. I clapped my hands and called the driver to come in. I pointed to the few masterpieces in the corner. Take these back. As for the rest, smash them all. The driver's eyes widened. He glanced at him. Don't look at him. Smash them all. I don't want anything that other people have touched. It's dirty. On the way back, he insisted on getting in the car with me. I looked at him sarcastically. What? Is the birthday party over? His brow was still furrowed. Don't say any more. Isabel, I was wrong. I shouldn't have made my own decisions. And I shouldn't have lied to you. But I can promise you, it hasn't gone that far between us. What that far? I didn't want to think about it. An indescribable disgust was welling up inside me. The atmosphere in the car was tense. He sighed. Isabel, you know what kind of person I am. In our circle, so many people have lost their way. But my heart for you has never changed. But people get tired sometimes. To me, she's just a bit of fun to lighten the mood. She's naive and simple, not so complicated. I held back my nausea and cut him off. You say you have no intentions, but you must know what her intentions are, right? He shook his head dismissively. It's just a common ailment of young girls. Isabel, I know that you are the only one who truly cares about me. The money I spend on her is not even pocket change. You don't have to be so calculative. His honesty sent a chill down my spine. In the past, his greatest strengths were his sincerity and his down-to-earth nature. But now, this well-dressed, gentle man was casually talking about the reasonableness of a rich man amusing himself with a young girl. The arrogance and discrimination of the upper class were on full display. I was shocked to realize that in all his years in the business world, he had transformed into someone I no longer knew. Even though his appearance hadn't changed much, I couldn't understand his thoughts at all. She was just unlucky and foolish. That was why I had found out so quickly. And before her, how many other young girls had there been? To help him relieve his stress, to be his playthings. If he could lie about matters of the heart, what about the company? He had induced me to step back from work to prepare for a child. Was it out of love? Or was it the first step in taking away my management rights? I dared not think too deeply. A sudden fear, like a dark cloud, pressed down on my chest, and I could not shake it. The next day, after he left, I opened my closet and changed out of my comfortable loungewear. I gathered all the folic acid and supplements. I had the maid dispose of them. At her hesitant expression, I simply said, there is no need for him to know. I had personally chosen the maid, and she had been with us for several years. She knew what to say and what not to say. In the tea house below the company building, Claire was already waiting. When she saw me in my sharp business attire, she was a little surprised. Boss, you. I nodded slightly. It's what you think. I'm coming back to work. A visible wave of relief washed over her. That's great. I was afraid of disturbing your rest, and I wasn't sure how to report some things to you. I was also afraid I was overthinking things and would disappoint you. Now that you're back, it's really great. My heart skipped a beat. Claire, you have to trust your instincts, and you have to trust my judgment. She nodded. Recently, he's been planning an acquisition, she said, watching my reaction. An acquisition. I had never heard him mention it, and the company had only just stabilized in recent years. It had not yet formed a large scale and system. It was too early to be talking about an acquisition. My expression grew grave. I gestured for her to continue. There's a company called Star Technology. He's very interested. He says their self-developed AI algorithm patent is very forward-looking. The due diligence report also shows that their financial statements and all public operating data look very good. But, she said with a worried look, the data is a little too perfect. I always feel there's something fishy. She took a file from her bag and pushed it toward me. I suppressed my shock and read it carefully. After reading it, my mind was in a turmoil. Her worries were not unfounded. Anyone who has been involved in business knows that no company's financial data is without flaws. This report was only good enough to fool a layman. She saw her chance and continued. He seems to be in a hurry. This week, he's notified all departments to cooperate with the legal department to push the acquisition forward as soon as possible. The last time I went to deliver a document, he wasn't there. There were 2 acquisition agreements on his desk. Her expression was a little awkward. She whispered. I quietly flipped through them. He has already signed. My eyes shot up. I was completely shocked. The company's equity was currently concentrated. The only shareholders were me and him. When we first started, he had voluntarily proposed that I hold 51 of the shares. He had said he trusted me with the management and decision-making power of the company, and he would be in charge of technology research and development and project development. Perhaps at that time, He had not anticipated that the company would catch the wave of the internet industry's development and soar. I clutched the file in my hand. My heart sank completely. So he was dissatisfied with my holding the power. If he wanted to participate in the management, he could have discussed it with me openly, instead of using such a despicable method to empty the company, to empty the fruits of our years of hard work. Actually, my next step was to adjust the equity structure. The draft was not yet complete, so I hadn't discussed it much. Was he really that impatient? I suddenly remembered that a few days ago, he had asked me to sign a power of attorney, saying that if I was not at the company, some urgent procedures would be difficult to handle. At that time, I hadn't thought much of it. I had even felt sorry for him, that the burden on his shoulders was even heavier. I prided myself on being smart and decisive, but now, I had been completely blindsided by my own husband. A bone-deep pain spread through me, but I knew that this was a critical moment. I could not break down now. Next Tuesday, he would personally lead a team to another city for negotiations. If things went smoothly, it was very likely that they would sign the acquisition agreement on the spot. She asked if I should go back to the company now and stop the process. I thought for a long time and shook my head. That would be letting him off too easy, and to tear everything apart now would be a Pyrrhic victory. If I was going to do this, I was going to make sure he had no chance of recovery. For the next few days, after he left, I would also go out and about. The night before his business trip, he was humming a tune as he packed, seeming to be in a good mood. I went to him and wrapped my arms around his waist. Since the incident with her, I had been cold to him and had not even spoken to him properly. He knew he was in the wrong and had been very submissive to me. Now, seeing my initiative, he was a little excited, and his arms around me were especially tight. I pressed my face against his chest and asked in a muffled voice, "Honey, can you not go on your business trip tomorrow? Let's go to the hospital together." He stiffened. He pulled back a little and looked down at me, a hint of suspicion in his dark eyes. A moment later, he said naturally, "Isabel, not this time. There's an important project launch meeting. I have to be there. I'll give Claire 2 days off to go to the hospital with you to get checked out. You don't have to be in a hurry to get pregnant. We can take our time." I looked up at him, my eyes meeting his, as if trying to see through his deliberate gentleness, to the end of his soul. "Honey, are you hiding something from me?" His pupils constricted, and a flash of panic crossed his eyes. I pretended not to notice and continued, "I can let the matter with Anna go, but if you lie to me again, I will not forgive you. Those who betray a true heart will have to swallow 1,000 needles." At my words, his brow visibly relaxed. He probably thought I was still stuck on her and was just looking for a promise to feel secure. "I swear, I'm not. Isabel, we have a long and good life ahead of us. You have to believe me." We had become masters of dissimulation over the years. Even in a tight embrace, we could not guess how much of the other's heart was true. The next day, I saw him off. As he was leaving, he leaned in and kissed my forehead. I did not flinch. I leaned against the door, watching his confident stride, further and further away. After his car had driven off, I called Claire. I had her find a way to leak his itinerary to her. The club was gone. He was being cautious around me. He had pushed her out of his mind. But a young girl who had just had a taste of sweetness, how could she give up so easily? I went back to the company and immediately scheduled a meeting with the finance director. He sat before me, uneasy, his eyes darting to his phone. "If you want to tip him off, you can go and pack your things now. Whatever he has promised you is empty. As long as this acquisition doesn't go through, I still hold 51 of the real power in this company. Firing you is a matter of minutes. Besides, do you think that at this point, I am sitting before you completely unaware of what you have been doing? Do you think his business trip will go smoothly? I'd advise you to think carefully and protect your own career." On Tuesday, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window of my office, calmly looking out at the city. The first call came from her boss. As you predicted, she really did follow him. The negotiation meeting at the Intercontinental had just started when she burst in. Her voice was low on the other end. She was wearing a lingerie-style dress, as if she wanted everyone to know what she was up to. He was so embarrassed his face turned black. He told her to get out. When she saw he was serious, she clung to him and cried, calling him senior. Everyone got a good show. Someone even secretly took photos. The other company also questioned our professionalism. The way they looked at him was not as respectful as before. To be honest, I didn't care about her. This was just to disgust him. Since he was so obsessed with a young girl's naivety, he should also enjoy her foolishness. He was the one who had brought her into our lives. It was his own fault that he was now in a mess. It was only when she told me that both sides had signed the acquisition agreement that I relaxed and hung up. Not long after, the second call came. As expected, the moment I answered, his furious voice came from the other end. Isabel, what are you doing? Why are all the company's funds frozen? I have a very urgent deal here. I need to make the first payment. Realizing he had lost his temper, he composed himself and said patiently, Isabel, whatever problems we have, we can solve them internally. There's no need to bring it to the company level. This company is our life's work. Whatever you're feeling, put it aside for now. I held the phone away from my ear and said lightly, you know the company is our life's work, and you still played this game with me. I had exposed him. There was a long silence on the other end, so long that I thought he had hung up. Then his voice came through. Isabel, I think our current situation is fine. You take care of the home, and I'll take care of the business. You've had your chance to be a career woman. It's time to come back to your life. Compared to a career woman, I long for a warm family life after work, with you and a child. Look at our friends. Isn't that how they all are in the end? We don't have to both be so focused on our careers. Even though my heart was dead to him, his words still made me pause. In the most difficult times of our startup, at the critical moments of the company's development, he had never told me to step back and rest. When he was buried in his research, my contribution was no less than his. Bank loans, credit lines, qualifications, business adjustments. I could say with confidence that every step of the company's journey was filled with my blood, sweat, and tears. I asked in a hoarse voice, since you are so eager to enjoy a family life and you often feel the pressure of work, why can't you be the one to step back? Don't try to take my accomplishments under the guise of doing what's best for me. A light laugh from the other end. Even though I couldn't see his face, I could imagine the sarcasm on it. Isabel, after all these years, you still don't understand one thing. The things you do, for a company, they have value, but limited value. In other words, anyone could do them, but the company's core products were all developed by me and my team. I am not willing to have your business strategies override my products. Isabel, the acquisition agreement has been signed. You now have two choices. Notify the finance department to make the payment, or wait for the company to be sued. He said calmly, my love, in any case, this is a company matter. Privately, I really don't want you to work so hard. I squeezed my phone. No more softness, David. Do you remember what I said to you before you left? Those who betray a true heart will have to swallow 1,000 needles. I hung up. I made a call to my lawyer. Then I drove to the hospital. As I waited for the surgery, I gently stroked my belly. I never thought that my marriage to him would end with the loss of a small life. The child we had both been hoping for had come at the most inopportune time. I still remembered the afternoon I had gotten the positive pregnancy report at the hospital. I was so excited, trying to figure out how to tell him, when I got a call from Claire. She said, the new assistant is a bit of a troublemaker. Her name is Anna. And so, the Pandora's box of my life was opened. Step by step, I could no longer deceive myself. After I sent him the report and the surgery bill, he didn't reply. Instead, he took a red-eye flight back. He stopped at the door to my room. His eyes were red, and he looked at me with disbelief. Our eyes met. He choked out, Isabel, you killed our child. You are so cruel. I looked up, my face a blank mask. Compared to your heart, I am a little less. He advanced on me. Isabel, you know there were so many things I could have done openly, but I chose to handle them privately, just because I was afraid of hurting you. Why did you have to be so aggressive? To dig and dig? Isn't being a housewife good enough? Isn't my love enough for you? I swear, this was the funniest joke I had heard all year. I laughed and laughed until tears filled my eyes. If you had asked me that before, perhaps I would have thought it was a good choice, but when you allow other women to please you, when you allow yourself to consciously sink, everything has already gone off track. You hate my sharpness, but I am glad I was clear-headed enough to see your schemes in time. Your love and your heart are just cheap, sugar-coated things. They are not worthy of my true heart. The veins on his arms bulged, his clenched fists loosened and tightened. Finally, he was defeated. You should rest, he said, and fled. After the acquisition agreement for Star Technology was signed, the payment was delayed. When he tried to force the finance department to make the payment, he was informed by my legal team that the agreement was suspected of being fraudulent and that a legal process had been initiated, and that he, as the primary person responsible, was not allowed to participate in any company operations during this period and had to cooperate fully with the investigation. He didn't believe it. He yelled at the lawyers and even got violent. He was arrested for obstruction of justice. He wanted to see me. I didn't go. My lawyer handled everything. I never denied that he was a brilliant technician. The company's development was largely due to him, but he was also a terrible businessman. While he was lost in his naive fantasy of transferring assets through an acquisition, I, as the legal representative, had already changed the company's official and financial seals. Even though he held a power of attorney signed by me, the acquisition agreement was still invalid, and I had simultaneously filed a lawsuit against him for attempting to embezzle company assets. That invalid, signed agreement was his evidence of guilt. While he was in custody, he tried to contact me many times through his lawyer, and I, just as he had before, magnanimously gave him two choices. 1. Sign the divorce papers. The company would be mine, and I would only give him a humanitarian division of assets. This was my last bit of conscience. 2. Let the law decide, because the amount involved was huge. He was looking at 510 years. By the time he got out, who knows what the world would be like. I waited for half a month. He finally couldn't take it anymore and chose option 1. I successfully got the divorce papers and all the company's shares. The industry was abuzz with talk of my ruthlessness. A modern black widow, Claire, worried about my emotional state, clumsily tried to comfort me. I patted her on the shoulder and told her not to worry. To be called ruthless by others meant that I was the final winner in this game of deception. The opinions of the outside world never mattered. What mattered was what I held in my own hands. Epilogue. He took all the core members of the product department and started a new company. He always believed that it was his technology that had led the company to success, and my so-called business acumen was not worth mentioning. I had to laugh. It was better that the disloyal ones were gone. It saved me a lot of severance pay, so I offered double, even triple the salary, and rebuilt the technical team. For core technical positions, I not only gave a salary but also dividends and equity. I even helped their families with jobs and their children with schooling. In just 6 months, the technical team was seamlessly integrated into all the projects. Young minds are so good. The new products they developed were a perfect fit for the current market demand. The company's performance soared. As for him, I heard from a mutual friend that it was a complete mess. The company had no competent HR, business, or finance departments. Not that he knew anything about those things. They got a lot of projects, but they had cash flow problems. He tried to relieve the pressure by cutting salaries. This led to a massive loss of personnel and difficulty in delivering projects. I heard he had been blacklisted by several industries. At his wit's end, he came to see me. I watched him apologize, repent, and cry, but I was unmoved. Everyone has to pay for their own ignorance. My price was the child that had been removed from me by a cold instrument on an operating table, and his price was still to be paid. One afternoon, Claire leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Boss, do you remember Anna?" I raised an eyebrow and gestured for her to continue. I was afraid she would retaliate against the company, so I've been keeping an eye on her. I found out that she's hooked up with one of our clients, probably the one she met at the club. From her social media, she was living a good life for a while, but recently, the boss wife found out, hired a few thugs, and had her stripped naked in the street. Claire's face was full of gossipy excitement. She showed me a photo on her phone. She's a hot topic online now. A lot of other things about her have also been dug up. Such a young girl. Why did she choose such a path? I sipped my coffee. I wasn't surprised at all, because those few thugs, I had introduced them to the wife. I couldn't help it. It was my duty to share my client's burdens. Of course, cheaters were an exception.